Hey, welcome to the Intentional Mind Podcast. I'm your host, Ange Barnard, and today's episode is for you. If you have been wondering whether or not you should make an investment in something. So this could be anything that you're wondering, is this thing worth my time, my money, my energy, or is it not? If those kinds of thoughts have been swirling in your mind, again, this episode is for you. And again, this could be anything. This could be, should I invest in this coaching program or this course or this property or this new job or this move or this relationship, whatever it is. I want to talk about some things to consider when you are making an investment that will help you move forward. Get you out of that confused state where you're like, should I not? Because the thing is, when you stay in that state of confusion, what actually happens is you start to generate a lot of that catabolic energy that we talk about on the show. This is that kind of energy that's draining, that's exhausting for you and for other people to be around. It just takes a lot out of you. So I want to help you get out of that confusion state and make a decision to move forward. All right. So another thing that I like to do on the show is when I come up with topics for the week that I want to talk about, it's usually inspired by trends that I'm seeing where people are either asking me questions around this topic a lot, or I notice that it's something that I might be struggling with in my life. And I think, oh, I can't be the only one that struggles with this. So that's how I come up with these topics. This week, I noticed a trend where a lot of people were asking me about whether or not they should invest in something. And there was a lot of confusion and doubt and stuff showing up for them. So uncertainty around the thing. So I want to talk about that. I actually had my own one-on-one coaching session earlier this week with my personal coach. And I spent the entire session talking about how I was uncertain whether or not I wanted to make an investment in something. And there was a lot of mental chatter around that thing. And when I say mental chatter, what I'm talking about is like, I didn't have peace around it. Like I was like, I don't know if I did do this. Like in one sense, I want to do it. In another sense, I'm just kind of like, I don't know if I'll actually do well with it. I don't trust myself enough to follow through. And really because this was a new territory for me. And also because you know what was happening when I was thinking about making this decision? I was thinking about the old Ange and all the other times she's invested in things and she may have not followed through. Or it didn't work out the way that she wanted. My mind was going through to all of those fear-based negative places. And I was trying to use that information to make a decision around whether I should move forward. So in a nutshell, what was happening is I was trying to make this decision from a low energy place. You know what I'm always talking about on the show? That doesn't serve you. But that was happening. And I knew it was happening because I could feel it. I could feel that I lacked peace around it. And that's why I asked for my coaching session with my coach to be devoted to helping me make a decision around this. And I said, what I really want to get out of this is I want to come from a place of making this decision from a higher energy place. Whether that's to move forward or not, I want to make sure that I'm deciding that from a higher energy place. So we did the session and we figured it out. And at the end of the session, I was like, you know what? I know exactly what I want to do. And I'll tell you some of the things that helped me get to that place. But I also want to real quick tell you another story and then we'll blend all the wisdom together. So earlier this week, I got an email from a listener of the show. Shout out to this amazing human who was super vulnerable and just kept it real in her email. She was interested in coaching. And she also was wondering if it was worth the investment, not because of me and my work, but because of her past of investing in coaching and then not following through on the actions. So the fear was showing up, was like, would I be doing that again? Is it going to be a waste of money if I show up like I did in the past? You know, it's that lack of trusting yourself with this next investment that you make. And the reason I say this is because I struggle with this too. In fact, that's why I had an entire session devoted to it earlier this week, is because I was wondering, like, am I not going to follow through on this thing? Am I not going to do well with it? And you know what was happening is my brain was trying to find evidence from the past where I didn't show up in ways that I wanted to, or where I sucked at something that I did, or I made a mistake, whatever it is, right? It's that negative stuff it was collecting evidence around, because we're about to step in new territory. So that's a normal response that your brain does. And it's also one of those things that we like to say, not today, Satan, not today, when you're about to step out and do something. And it's like, let me remind you of all the ways that you lacked in the past, how you didn't succeed with that thing. So how are you going to succeed with this thing? Like that kind of stuff that happens, that mental chatter that shows up, that like yanks us back. It's like you get excited about the thing and then something pulls you back, and it's all that chatter that shows up. That catabolic energy that's generating. Okay, so how do we handle this? How do we shift out of that to make a decision from a higher energy place? That's what I want to talk about. All right, so let me tell you what worked well for me. In the specific situation that I was talking about earlier, it had to do with a property that I was considering investing in. And there was, again, a lot of mental chatter around it. Like, I was like, I don't know if I don't even know what the heck I'm doing, I feel like, with this kind of property. Haven't done an investment like that before. And then I was like, can I handle it? Like, am I putting too much on my plate? Because I have a tendency to do that sometimes. You know, like some of that stuff was showing up for me, the chatter. What helped me was, first off, asking myself, is this in alignment with who I want to be? Is this thing that I'm thinking about investing in, is this in alignment with who I want to be? Again, key word here is be. This is why it's so important that you need to be clear on your vision and who you want to be, because that's the only way that you can take intentional actions. So when I asked myself that question, I was like, well, this is in alignment with the identity that I have. And this could be like, if someone was going to invest in coaching, let's say even with me, it would be like, I know that I want to be a speaker or have a career that I really love. So this action would be to invest in coaching with someone that might specialize in that, would be in alignment with that vision, right? So it's just like eating the salad when I want to be a healthy, fit person, choosing that off the menu versus the fried tater tots. That's in alignment with my identity and who I want to be, that healthier version of the food. So that helps you make decisions. So that was a question I asked myself, and I was like, yeah, this is in alignment with the vision that I've had. Okay, check. Then I needed to do the coaching work around the doubt that was showing up around it. So what my brain was doing was it was collecting evidence from all the past ways that I didn't show up for myself, or just other evidence around how I can't trust myself to follow through, to handle this. That kind of stuff was showing up. So what the coach was doing with me, my coach, was she was helping my brain collect evidence around other times in my life where I showed up for myself. Where instead of what my brain was doing, it was focusing on where I didn't, where I lacked, where I sucked. And it's like, she's like, wait, let's look at this. Tell me about another time that you were thinking about doing something and, it was completely new to you. Maybe it wasn't even a similar situation at all because you haven't done this thing before, let's say for my specific example, but maybe it's something else that you didn't know how to do. How did you figure it out? Like what happened in that situation? And I was starting to share some of my success stories. And it was happening as I was showing my brain where I was resilient, where I showed up for myself, where I was disciplined. And you could think about this in other areas of your life where I know there's other areas that you have gone all out in. It could be even as, a parent. It could be just something else that you were committed to. Like there's things that you're showing up for, areas in your life that you do excel at. You got to remind yourself of that evidence. And you think, well, like I can bring those characteristics into this thing too. So what was happening for me, I was like, yeah, like I can figure it out. And then we went through some of the scenarios that I was afraid of, worst case scenarios, and how I would handle those. Like, okay, if that happened now, how would you handle it? And then what helped me was the fear ended up going away because I was shining a light on all those things and thinking about possible solutions. And then some of the things I was like, that's even ridiculous that I'm worried about that I'm thinking about this problem now, because it's like the chances of it happening are probably slim to none. But it's like it was taking my energy, because that's what happens too from a brain science perspective. You are programmed, right? There's certain programs that are running for you to keep the identity that you have. So if you are thinking about developing a new identity, in my case, it would be this kind of property investor. My brain subconsciously too is going to trigger things. It's going to be like, what? We don't know how to do that. We've never been that person. And it could even be anything else in your life. Like this is even where you see people self-sabotage around, like, let's say they've never had a really thriving, healthy relationship. And then they find themselves in a happy one. It seems to be going well. And then they do something to self-sabotage that kind of relationship. It's because the brain wants to keep what's familiar, the current program running. So that's a very normal thing that happens, is like the triggering of, let me remind you of who you've been, happening to keep you safe, because the brain doesn't like it when things are uncertain. It scares us. So let me remind you of all these areas to hold, like that you failed or that it's more like you, and let me pull you back a bit. And this is where you need to very intentionally find evidence to support who you want to be. That's going to help you take that action step to move forward. So this is why the coaching piece is so helpful to people. This is why it was so helpful to me the other day to make a decision. Because after I got off that call, I was like, I just feel so much more peace about what I'm doing now. Not to say it's not scary, because it's still new territory for me. But I just know that this is in alignment. And then I also felt like unattached to it. I was like, even if we don't get this, like I'm not even worried about it, because I trust that things are happening for me. But at the very least, I want to know that I made a decision from a higher energy place. And I did. I went forward. I didn't end up getting the property. And even now on the other end, I'm like, I'm okay with that. I feel good about it, that I still was acting like the person I wanted to be. And I don't feel attached. And this is an example of me coming from a higher energy place, because there's no attachment there. I just have peace about it. I think there's a difference there too between, like, when we're making decisions from a higher energy place, there really is more peace about it. If you're making decisions from a lower energy place, there's a lot of mental chatter happening. There can be a lot of confusion, a lot of self-doubt. And again, whatever energy you're putting into something is often the energy that's going to be generated, and more of that's going to come in. That's why we got to think about, like, how can I make this from a higher energy place? And the answer may be no, that you don't want to move forward on the thing, but you won't have a lot of chatter about it. It'll just be more peace about it when you make it from a higher energy place. And it's not always easy for us to do this on our own, this kind of work. This is why it's helpful to talk to someone else about it, get someone to ask the right kinds of questions to help shift you, get you to see things differently, remind you of the goodness that is there, that has been there, to get your brain to focus on that. Because so often when we're thinking about making an investment of our time, money, and energy, where does our brain go right away? What could go wrong? Just how our brains are wired, like for survival. What could go wrong with this? Versus what could go right? What other areas have you excelled in? What has set you up for success to handle this? What makes this situation different? That's another one of my favorite questions to ask people. What's different now? Yeah, you might not have showed up for yourself in the past for some other thing, but what's different now? And now that you know that, what do you want to do differently as you move forward? You can hit the reset button anytime. That is up to you. And you know what? You are not the same person you used to be. You're not the same person you were even a week ago. So maybe your old version of yourself had a habit of some self-sabotaging things, but this new version of yourself doesn't have to be that way. Like, you can decide who you want to be as you move forward. Another thing that serves me is, again, just simply believing that everything was happening for me. And there's a season for everything. And like, I've invested in other programs and things in the past that I didn't show up for, that I didn't finish, but that I later showed up for and I later finished. And the timing was even better. And there was a different Anne showing up to that. Like, she was more committed. She had, there wasn't chaos happening in her life. Like, I just saw it, like, as I look back now, I'm like, oh, it was all happening for me. Even now, not making a story that I suck. Instead, I'm like, oh, must have not been the right time. Now I'm equipped with the tools and I believe I can move forward from here. It's like changing the narrative that is there, because I don't want that to hold me back anymore. And as I'm telling you all this reminds me of when I first signed up for coaching to help me with my dream around my TEDx talk. This was years ago. And I didn't even finish the program. Like, I went through parts of it and then I went MIA and I was like traveling galore and things. And it just, like, nothing happened because I didn't really move forward on it. And then later on, I got asked to come work with a team. And then I got all these other skills and I started learning a lot more about public speaking and my thought leadership and all those things. And then it happened at the right time. Like, you know what? I wouldn't have made this next investment in the work that I'm doing with my time and energy and in other public speaking stuff programs and things I've learned, if I kept running the thought, hey, Ange, remember your old self? You bought that other program and you didn't show up for yourself. Now I look back and I'm like, all of it served you. All of it. Like, now you are at a better stage mentally to move forward and you're set up for success. So I just make up a story that serves me, that everything is happening for me. And that's, again, an example of me coming from a higher energy place. And again, remember, it's not about always like getting you to say, yes, I want to do this thing. It's about getting you to a place that even if you say, no, I don't want to do that thing, that you feel peace around it, that you're making that decision from a higher energy place. That is what I'm about, because it's all about the energy. We know that. We want to make sure we are showing up from the higher places when we make these decisions around should we invest in something. I want you to check in and see, like, are you focusing on what could go wrong in this situation? Is that where your mind's going? Of where maybe you can't handle the things, you won't have the time, or and there's some lack. If you feel the lack energy around it showing up in your mind, that's an example of making the decision from the lower energy place. So really thinking about, how do I make that shift up? And the question that really helps too, just very simply put, is this in alignment with my vision? Is it in alignment with the person I want to be? That will help you make the decision. Sometimes you'll realize that maybe that person that you wanted to be isn't, like, in the past, ain't that person right now, because things have changed in your life. So then who do you want to be? This is where it always comes back to the vision. So you need help with that. We can chat about that. The other thing I want to leave you with, if you don't have a copy of the Energy Communication Guide, I will put a link to that in the details of this episode, because it's really just important to check in and see the different kinds of energy that you might be showing up around a situation. And then also get some of those questions in your mind to help shift. And that guide gives you all of that if you don't have it. So the link will be here. I hope this episode just got you thinking about the investments that you're thinking about making, and gave you some questions to think about. One, is this in alignment with my vision? Does this help me be who I want to be? And two, instead of thinking what all could go wrong, what could go right? What could happen well for you? Like, what if you trusted yourself to show up differently during this thing? What would you do then? Would you say yes to the thing? Would you say no? How do you really want to use your time? There's so many questions that we could get into if it was like a coaching session, but hopefully this just got you thinking and this episode served you. I will talk to you soon. Have an awesome day. Bye.